Welcome back to Project Literacy Lab. We have the honor of sitting down with the CEO of CellEd, Jessica, and I've got to say, I am very excited for where this conversation might go here tonight.
You got that look.
I got that look. I got that look. And I figure we should play it safe for a little bit and kick off with really...
For like 1 second.
Yeah, right? Kick off with CellEd. And I'm curious where it came from, the idea, and what was going on in your mind to create this incredible company.
Yeah. It's so simple. We thought if we could bridge the greatest gaps, the opportunity gaps and the digital divide, all with something in your pocket, a cell phone, we could really end a lot of suffering. And that's where we started. So simple, right? But with a text we can, and in fact we can teach adults to read in their first language. And we can do that in 4 months, and we can do that in 44 hours, and we can do that for $12. We don't need internet.
All right, I just have to break that down a little bit. So typically in a classroom, to go from zero literacy to being literate would take about how long?
2 years.
2 years.
For an adult who hasn't had access to a classroom to date.
Wow. And for you guys, how long does it take on a cell phone?
Well, 44 hours, but in 3-minute bites. So any time of day when somebody has time in a busy day, they can make a phone call, just a call, and listen to a skill on the go.
Wow. So give us a sense of what that means for the real person at the other end of that that transformation, but also the fact that they don't need to be in a classroom for 2 years.
Yeah. Well, who is in a classroom for 2 years, actually, if we think about it? If we know most adults don't get access to classrooms, less than 5%, and those classrooms weren't designed for them in the first place, then would they have ever gotten to a classroom? Probably not. And if they did, is the material relevant? If they've been working for their lives, but they didn't have access to this and this and this, how are they going to get it? Well, they're on a phone. We know that because everyone has one. We just don't know who's been listening. So we're listening and really building from the ground up. What did she need or he need? And we deliver that skill just in a few minutes. And we keep learning and throwing it back out. They tell us what they like and they don't. And all this is automated, so we can scale ultimately to as many folks who have a phone. And we know that's 98% of the world.
Wow. So you are using probably the largest network on the planet, people who have phones, to teach literacy. What else are you teaching? We wanted to connect. And to connect.
So I know people call it literacy, but isn't it about human connection?
Yeah.
And if you can't feel heard and you can't tell your story, well, so much else gets in your way. And especially when tech companies, I'm based in Silicon Valley, we haven't been trained to listen to most people. And so what are our technologies? They're often designed for me, and there are not many of us who have access to classrooms.
Yeah. How big is the population, at least in the U.S., that is not just a potential market for you, but really that is struggling in this space and unable to access standard or formal education?
Yeah. Well, 100 million. We know 50% of them are unemployed or underemployed. The other half lack the ability to do enough math. 1 in 3 adults lack enough math to get and keep a job. I mean, think about that. You must know somebody that maybe told you they did or didn't. Silent. It's a silent. They really mean it's a silent epidemic, because even if you do have it, you're going to kind of suffer in silence. But you don't have to if you have a phone.
Yeah.
And it's a private connection. And it's an automated teacher and a bunch of voices and a lot of situations you may actually find yourself in. But if you actually struggle, we'll know on the back end, and you'll get a text or phone call from a live coach, a real person, a human connection.
Yeah. Who are some of your competitors, or what are some of the other players in this space? Just name a few names. I don't know if we'd recognize any.
Anyone? Rosetta Stone on the
Never heard of
language
that.
side.
Garbage.
Little Duolingo over here. And then we're on the training, the workforce side. So you hear a lot about how people get the skills they need to do their jobs, but it's usually the top of the food chain in a company. So our average company size, let's say it's 3,000. We know that maybe 100 folks are going to get the amazing technology access and skills. That's 100. What about everyone else? So we design for everyone else. And in fact, we can probably give you the techniques you need at the 100 as well. We're a flexible platform. We can load and change any micro lesson designed for the need, but our goal is to reach the greatest gaps.
Yeah.
The 100 million in the U.S. and 2 billion worldwide.
I mean, I've heard of a lot of sort of apps and sort
What's a bad
of
word in my world?
little things that can help you be more mindful and help you learn a lesson, language.
I look mindful?
I totally mindful.
I am a disaster. I couldn't even sit for a second.
You're doing so well. I am curious though. There's a lot out there, and the idea of what you can accomplish. Yes, it sounds nice, but what's the efficacy behind it? How do you stand up to Rosetta Stone and others?
Well, I don't start with Rosetta Stone. I start with the need.
Yeah.
20 years ago when I got into space, I was in it a lot longer as a child. It's easy to see outside a bus window how many people don't have access to a home. I had a bus I lived in. And then you get to see, when you go town to town, I was at 14 different public schools by the time I moved back to Palo Alto. And what do you see? Extremes, that we don't talk about. Some schools had textbooks. Some did not. Some prepared you for, basically ballroom dancing, soccer, and some ski trips somewhere. And the other was you were just not going to get access. It was clear. I also have a twin brother who suffered with severe dyslexia and a brother ADHD, the whole spectrum. Yeah. And we didn't know it had a name because we moved school to school. You just know you're not going to get the rung. You're not going to get to the next step. So we're all very sensitive in my family. So if we would just listen a little bit longer, try a little bit harder, could we end suffering? That's basically the mantra. And that's basically the cell-ed way, right? If you keep it real as a human, and next you listen as hard as you can, but in all the different ways you need to listen, because I guarantee somebody has a different experience from you. And then you deliver on that need, and you deliver on that need, and you deliver on that need, and you repeat. You basically have the culture that we live by.
I'm gonna get back to your
you like those numbers.
I know. I'm going right for the numbers.
Okay,
I want to know, does it work? How do you know it works?
Yeah. Well, I need evidence, and data is really key for me, because I think a lot of people I talk to say, well, doesn't everybody want? Don't they need? And I go, oh, well, first of all, who is they? Where? How? When? Because we get really, really comfortable speaking for others without any evidence. So I start with the data. So I went originally, I said, well, where's the greatest need? And we knew, in this case, if we could reach the hardest to reach and teach, these are non-literate women in their first language with a tool that's in their pocket, and we could prove that case, then we have something to build on. So we started with the research. We started with a randomized control trial for 2 years, just 2 years, to see if it would work. That's before we launched in 2014, and we found that just by providing that lifeline, that 44-hour course in little bits to a woman who couldn't read the bus signs on her way to the work, could she learn? And 75% not only stayed on the system, they literally learned to read in 4 months. But more importantly, it was, that piece is fine, right? Everybody wants to hear that they had a target of learning. The most important piece is she gained the confidence to learn more. We only developed English on the go because they asked for it. What do you want next? I need enough language to get and keep a job. I need to talk to the doctor. I need to apply for a driver's license. I need to do these things. So, okay, fine, we'll develop that. What do you want next? And if you just get that feedback loop, you can deliver.
Wow. And, I mean, pretty much where have you gone since launch?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the scale right now for you guys?
Where are we going next?
Yeah.
Well, we've got lots of incredible partners, and it started by listening. So the need is so great. I think that people can understand in this space. It's really, you know the need whenever you find out there's a long waiting list to a classroom for adults. That's one. You know that if somebody's not staying on the job very long, there's probably some issue. Well, we had these partners that came to us up front and saying, well, we've heard you can do this without internet, and we hear that it's flexible and you're designed specifically for the need for these workers who are non-literate, low literate. Let's try and work together to figure it out. And so we were honored to work with some amazing people in 2014, and all of those have been repeat and growing. And these are partners like state of New York and Texas. It's the largest library associations in the U.S. And then there's the employers themselves. We have a huge number of frontline workers. And then internationally, we don't want to leave girls behind and women who've been out of school. So those are our partnerships, and we're going global at 2018.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's why I need your wine.
Yeah, get in there. Get in there.
It's so much easier said than done. Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to you referenced your upbringing and the point of view that it gave you on life, and really a lot of lessons that were taught.
Yes.
Literally from going school to school. And you mentioned living on a bus. And a lot of us have heard, the bits of this story. But I'm wondering if you can share with us really how you ended up on that bus. Not just the experience on it, but how did you get there, and then how did you get off?
Real life.
Yeah.
My father, we used to hear he was the golden boy. So really bright, based in Los Angeles, children of sort of the Hollywood type. So we used to hear these crazy stories about what it was like there. So instead of going to MIT, he went up to Stanford. And he was in the middle of this world there, and he's a creative. It was a competitive environment. My mom had just finished up high school at Palo Alto High School. She's also a creative. Wasn't really successful in school. And you know what? They met, they eloped, and they lived the hippie dream. The problem is, I think at that front line, a lot happens. In this case, he just had too many brownies. Just steer clear of the brownies. And in that act of overdosing, which happens so much, he was institutionalized for a period of time. And the only problem with that is when you have 3 children at home that are very young, and they were all a year apart. And then why not have 2 more? And I'm a twin. I'm really fortunate to be a twin. But keeping it together is already hard enough. And when you already have these learning challenges compounded, I just found I've always been so thankful, first, to have creative people in my life, my parents and family. I am so fortunate. Second, that I was on the road to hear stories all the time. I was so fortunate to be able to have that opportunity, and that I was always warm and loved. What I did find out is that everybody else wants you to sort of tell a different story, And I felt like if I got to tell my story, you get to tell your story, you get to tell your story, everybody would have the opportunity they want. I was on my own at 15. It was really my choice. I wanted to stay in Palo Alto because I was a competitor. I liked my classes. I wanted to get a year off of college by winning in all the AP classes and figuring it out. So I found my way. I was very, very privileged to be in a school system like that, where I would just go into a box in the center, and there were like all of these things you could apply to, called grants and scholarships. So what did I do? I asked for help. Hey, anybody know how to fill these in? Great. And I filled in a bunch. I even had to do a pageant. Who does a pageant? I actually took it literally, like it's a scholarship for school. I'm like, oh, this is where I'm really naive. So I apply, and I go down to LA on a bus, and I get there, and I'm thinking, I've got all of this stuff in my bag. I'm going to give a speech about changing the world by listening and poverty alleviation, everything. And I have this suit that I'm supposed to wear at this pageant in LA for again, called National Ideal American Teen. And I bought it. And I get there, and I had even rented an outfit, skydiver with goggles. Because skydiving is a lot like life. So I get up on this stage like I always did, because again, it is just, if you don't laugh at yourself, you get.
Oh, yeah.
And I did it, but it was horrifying. It was like a raider at one. I was like, what is this? She got a snowmobile. I don't know what it is.
Snowmobile in Palo Alto.
No, this is LA. This is national. Right. I was way out of my league. But I applied. It was amazing. I applied for maybe 40 different grants and scholarships at that time. I became really, Rotary Club supported me to get to school. Raychem Corporation supported me to get to school. People just kept supporting my idealism. They believed that it was okay that I was a quirky comedian who thought I could change the world one bit of business at a time. And I've been supported all the way, and I have all of these people here who've been helping me all week make all the difference in the world. So I couldn't be more thankful.
So, I mean, it sounds like you were an entrepreneur from the time you were 15 or even earlier.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the things you've held on to throughout that journey?
I have this little yellow. So how much of an entrepreneur? Oh, age 5. We'll go back there. So I had this yellow, and still have this yellow safe with a red knob.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm picturing it.
Yeah, you heard I like the odd jobs.
Yeah.
I've seen all kind of odd jobs. But that means you get money. So
Yeah.
sometimes they give you a $5 or a 10. So I would go down to Woolworths, exchange it for $1 bills, so that I could put, like, it would be a bigger stack.
Yeah. It's brilliant.
Yeah. And then I have a treasure map that I would hide so that nobody could find my safe, right? But this idea that it was so valuable that if you just asked people what they wanted, they would give you money because you met a key need that they had. And that safe, I mean, it's always been about that. And then how do I spend it for building more of this business? So when people ask me, do you get paid? I'm like, well, it's good business. And are you always about social impact, justice, equality, and opportunity? There isn't a day that goes by that it isn't about that. And is it about the creatives who aren't telling their story? Absolutely. They should be driving things. So I'd love to see everybody at the top who really feel first and use their best to deliver on a better world.
Well, I think those are perfect sentiments to close out our chat tonight.
Thank you.
And I would just say we are beyond thrilled, not just for what you're going to do in the U.S., but what you're going to do globally. 2018 has no idea what's about to hit them. No doubt you are going to change millions of people's lives, and we'll be cheering you on every step of the way. So thank you, Jessica.
You're with me. You're all up here.